and welcome to Ask the Chiropractor. I'm Dr. Corey B. Rodnick, and this is my beautiful wife, Dr. Tony Rodnick.
Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I want hugs and kisses later.
Well, we can't do that on camera.
So today we're talking about chiropractic and we're talking about an anatomy. So whiplash, one of our favorite subjects, pretty serious subject because if you've experienced whiplash, it's quite an experience. I've had it myself. Have you ever had a whiplash?
Not fun.
Not fun.
Not necessarily car accidents. You can get whiplashes from roller coasters.
Yeah.
And other activities.
I remember after I got grilled a little bit after my barbecuing of my whole. I got electrocuted. So after that, getting whiplash was real easy for me because I wasn't held together well because all my ligaments were all messed up. So yeah, every time we rode the roller coaster, I was messed up completely. Yes, indeed. So what is whiplash?
Whiplash is when your neck is forcibly hyperflexed, going forward to an extreme. So you're tightening and stretching all the ligaments in the back, and then it's whipped back, again, really forcefully, and ripping all the ligaments in the front. And in the front, I also mean within the spinal canal, too. If we look at this, there's ligaments holding the spine together.
Wait, what is that?
Oh, this is a vertebrae. This is a whale vertebrae. And I guess this is not a good outfit to wear because it's a little snaggy on my clothes here. This is the body of the vertebra. This is the back elements. We have the spinous process, muscles attached to it help move the bone. Transverse processes, muscles attached to it move the bone. Connecting the front to the back is the pedicle. And when the front and back are connected together, it forms a circle. The spinal canal and the spinal cord goes down through the spinal canal. Now there's ligaments. One vertebrae stacks on top of another. I only have one big one, but here we have two, and the disc is in between them. So there's a ligament coming along the front, the anterior longitudinal ligament that often gets torn. And in the back of the body, there's also a ligament, that posterior longitudinal ligament, that connects all the vertebrae. So when you're forcibly moving your neck forward and back, when you get a whiplash, those ligaments get stretched and torn and change the structure of your spine.
Can you see these structures on an x-ray?
Not on an x-ray, but you can see it on MRIs.
And can you see it, the spaces between the vertebra?
The disc?
Yeah, so you can actually measure if one of these ligaments have been torn or overstretched, or how does that work? On a straight x-ray, you can't see the ligaments, you can't see the disc, you can see the space that they leave. But on motion x-rays, you can see still can't see the ligaments, but you can see the effect of the ligaments. If the ligaments are lax or stretched, we call it ligament laxity, then the bones individually move in an irregular pattern, which can be measured and recorded on an x-ray. So in other words, if you have two vertebrae...
we have two vertebrae. Just so happen to have two vertebrae.
And if it squishes off on one, like if this came and this is wide and this is thin, you could see that space and you can measure that. And then
so
if I have them bend forward and then it would spread these apart, then you could measure the distance
and when
of
they
that
bend
as
forward,
well.
if besides coming apart, if one move shifts forward, that could indicate that the ligaments have been damaged.
So a lot of attorneys and a lot of medical doctors have been sending people to our office to have that worked up to find out if that does exist after a car accident. Normally don't see it after someone falls down the stairs or anything, but I imagine we haven't been requested thus far to verify that. But getting a lot of requests for that lately, and so I guess it's a big thing right now.
Because it's a permanent disability. According to the AMA.
I think it's 25% permanent disability in the cervical region and 20% in the lumbar.
But we've seen things that were supposedly permanent improve with chiropractic care, like disc the disc space, if it's starting to degenerate, getting thinner, we've seen the disc space actually get wider again.
Yes, we have.
So
yes, we
permanent
have.
things might be changeable.
True. Sometimes does happen, but not most of the time. It takes a lot of time and effort.
Right.
I know for me, after I got electrocuted, I had that slippage, a lot of slippage. It was quite I have an X-ray machine that does a motion study, and I mean, it makes a movie because you get so many pictures in a certain span of time, and it would show this thing. So you'd see my bone moving like this. It would normally move like that. Mine would go, and it would slip forward. It would go like this and then slip forward.
And the only way you can do that if the ligaments have been
so
damaged.
The ligaments are normally attached here.
Hold it together.
So obviously something tore already. So, and I have seen that getting better. So that's not supposed to ever repair as well, but it has.
The body has amazing abilities to heal if you give it what it needs. It needs time. It needs proper nutrients. It needs proper exercise. It needs proper alignment, which is where the chiropractic care comes in.
Just unbelievable. And however, I don't know if it's as strong as it was before.
It's still some disability in there.
It has a little bit in there still. Yeah.
And that's been 10
Not that it couldn't, like a bone, remember?
That's been like 10 years.
They used to think, once you break a bone, it's always going to be your weakest thing there. Now they're saying, that no, it's actually stronger than it was. So who knows? But it's nice to get that back in shape. So let's take a look at some of these posters we have. So there's that whiplash. You saw when she bent her head forward. So here's a person. There's the nose. So their normal would be sitting straight up. Here's normal. Well,
that's after the damage.
That's after or before.
No, because there's
I know it shows after, but the spine should be like this kind of a shape. So here
a reverse C-shaped curve, maybe even a little more than in this picture, is a normal spine. This one's after a whiplash.
So the head's forward, and when it went forward, it's showing here it crushed a vertebra a little bit, smashed the disc in there,
and tore the ligament.
And tore the ligaments.
I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little red mark where the ligament's torn.
And here, the head going back.
And it's enlarged here. You can see the ligament damage.
Yeah.
And the pressure on the nerve.
And now, would you notice this right away? You could. You also might not notice it right away. I have people come in, a month after the car accident, and they'll say, I don't know if it related to it.
Or years
But I'll look at the x-ray and I go, of course it related to it.
Or you might see people years later, they might have felt problems, it might have improved, but then when they come in, you see the effects of the whiplash. They lost the curve in their neck. It's been there so long that the discs have started to degenerate because the discs get nutrients in and waste out by motion, and when it's subluxated, often it doesn't have the motion between the segments, and so the discs start degenerating, getting thinner. And then the body, to protect it, starts growing spurs. So a lot of times we see the effects of whiplash years later when we look at x-rays.
So now we have these headrests back here. So a lot of times when you whiplash your head backwards, it doesn't go that far back anymore. Sometimes, I should say sometimes. Here they're showing how the muscles tear as well. See, muscles generally heal pretty quick. But these, the ligaments take a long time. Usually it's 2 weeks for muscles. Tendons are 4 to 6 weeks. Ligaments, though, are 3 months plus. May take years. Could take a lifetime on ligaments.
Can I go back to what you just said before about headrests?
You can go back to anything your little heart desires.
So you were saying headrest, but sometimes they don't work. So that stresses the importance of making sure the headrest is adjusted properly for your head. You want it to support your head so that it won't go backwards.
Right.
So you don't want it too low. You don't want it too high. Some of these headrests, as a short person, they kind of pitch my neck forward, so you want to have the part that's pitching forward into the curve of your neck, not into your head, pitching your head forward.
I agree, yeah. could be a problem. So that's showing, again, the ligaments, and here they're showing, other ligaments as well. There's ligaments attaching one bone to the next bone. There's ligaments that going all the way along the whole thing. So it gives you an idea. And then there's ligaments in between the spinuses. And the spinuses are those bumps you feel in the back of your spine. So kind of cool. We find all kinds of stuff these days. Pretty horrible things happening.
The body's very complex and amazing.
And thank God the body heals itself. Oh my God. Because one of these would just take you out. Otherwise. Anyway. So let's go over that poster behind you.
So these are x-rays. So this is the near normal spine. Like we said, there's a reverse cervical curve. There's a C-shaped curve. You can't see the disc, but you can see the nice disc spaces. And the bodies are all relatively square or rectangular. So that's normal. And then here, this one has lost the curve. Remember, we should have a curve this way. And it's actually a little bit reversed. Hasn't been here that long. The disc space hasn't changed. The shape of the body hasn't really changed. But if you let it go longer, this one says a year and a half to 2.5 years. We got no curve, nice disc space, nice disc space. It's starting to thin. Nice disc space, nice disc space. So after a while, it's not moving properly, the disc isn't getting nutrients, and it starts degenerating. And then if you let it go longer, the body in its infinite wisdom tries to stabilize it by putting extra material to areas of stress. Kind of like if I'm always using a screwdriver, I might get calluses on my hand. Well, the bones aren't moving properly, the discs are degenerating, the body wants to stabilize it, so it puts extra bony growths on the ends. We call them spurs or osteophytes. So if you look at this one, nice disc space, thinning disc space, shape of the bodies are changing. Thinning disc space, shape of the bodies are changing. And it goes so far as to try to stabilize it by fusing it. Not much we can do here. Perhaps stop it from getting worse.
Look at the number segment 4. Look at the fourth one down. The top of the vertebra.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The top of the vertebra. See that corner?
Yeah, it's kind of
right
curved.
there. That means the top of the bone above it, the bottom of the bone above it, hit it.
When it went forcibly forward.
And it's kind of like Play-Doh. It makes a little dent there. It's not like life-threatening or anything, but
like
you can see.
Because on all these others, you can see the top of the vertebrae is straight across the end plates, and here it's kind of at an angle.
Dented. So you
and that's not even the one that has the disc degenerating.
The horrible disc degenerating. And that one looks compression fractured.
Yeah.
A little bit. So the bones actually start collapsing, and it's pretty messed up. Interesting. We look at this stuff all day long, so it's kind of common to us, but I don't know if we're explaining it very well. We're certainly trying. Here, let's look at this one. This is MRIs, and X-rays. So this is a near normal X-ray of the neck that Dr. Tony Rodnick was just showing you, and then here's the MRI, and it shows that you can see that the spinal cord. So these are the bodies of the vertebra. The squares, the discs in between. See how nice and big they all are? Not too squishy. A little dribble in here, but not bad. You can see this is the spinal cord. And those ligaments she was showing you before
are along the front and back of the body.
That black part. The white part is your spinal cord, and the black again behind it.
Or the cerebral spinal fluid that bathes the spinal cord is why it shows up white like that.
Yeah, so looking at this one, you see that the spine is no longer, well, you can see it on the X-ray, it's no longer got the curve in it. It's been reversed now. So there's a little bit of a whiplash, a little bit of a indentation here. A little tiny pressure, but nothing really serious.
Sometimes you actually see the discs really pushing into the cerebral spinal fluid or the spinal cord.
Or right into the spinal cord.
And that can cause, usually we're working with the nerve roots. If it's on the spinal cord, it can cause problems anywhere from that level down.
And the pressure on the nerves the weight of a dime on the back of your hand is enough to cause in reduction, like bring it back all the way down to like 45% of function left. So you lose like 60% of your function from the weight of a dime on the this part of the spine. In other words, when you do it on your leg, or if you ever had a blood pressure cuff, they'll pump that thing up to 200 pounds of pressure. The weight of the dime in this region here might knock out 60% of the function of that nerve. So it's more significant is all. So now we're looking again at the cervical spine. You see that this disc obviously is different. You see how it's squished on the x-ray? It looks like the space is smaller. Normal space, normal space. This space is squashed. This space is squashed. And you can see that again on the MRI. Disc, gone, squish, squish. And then you see what it does to the actual spinal cord. So the pressure right in here on the spinal cord, you're actually getting some pressure on there. So that could change how you walk. That could change how you go to the bathroom. That could change your whole reproductive system. That could change all kinds of different things. In here, probably from this, the nerves coming out of here would be going into your shoulders, arms, hands, fingers. So they might be complaining of shoulders tearing constantly. Like every time you go to reach for something in the cupboard, you get these micro tears in the muscles because they're already spastic. You're not aware of it. Kind of like if you hit your funny bone and your hand goes wing. Well, that's not the time you want to reach and grab something because you might rip all those muscles. So if this is slowly happening constantly, though, every time you raise your arm, you go, ooh, there it is. Like the third one. Okay, so that's how that happens, microtraumas over and over. And do you end up with torn ligaments, torn tendons? Yes, absolutely. But what's the actual cause? It's coming out of the neck. So that's interesting. And how often does that happen? I think it's in the 90th percentile.
After a whiplash.
I'm saying the cause of the shoulder problem is not the shoulder itself. It's actually from the neck, and then they may get shoulder surgery. But for me, I lift up on the head a little bit, and if the pain is gone, obviously you're pinching a nerve in your neck. It's not like an Einstein test. It's the Rodnick pull on my head test. So I lift up gently on the skull, and if the pressure's gone from the wrist or the elbow, it just tells me immediately
the problem's originally into the neck.
Yes. I mean, it could have both. It could have like, they call it crunch. So crunch syndrome. So it could be the crush ones. So that crush could be coming from the neck, could be crushing from the shoulder
it's like
or elbow.
Pressure on the nerve.
Yeah.
So it could be double crush, triple crush.
Yeah.
So what are those funny pictures on the bottom? Those don't even look like a spine.
Right? So they're looking at the spinal cord. This is a different view. Here we're just slicing. Here we're slicing, like the head is looking that way. I'm slicing the head, and we're looking at sliced pictures. No real slicing, guys. And this one is from the top.
So it's like cutting the body this way. So we're seeing different levels, and they go through the whole spine. So we're seeing the different levels. And that circle in the middle, that hole is this hole right here, and the spinal cord is right in the center of that. The pink is the spinal cord, and the black is the space around it. It's surrounded by fluid. But look at that. There's little connections, little ligaments connecting the spinal cord to the vertebra. So what happens when there's a whiplash because of that?
Here it is. Unhealthy stretched spinal cord. So the whole spinal cord's been stretched. So like a noodle, it gets stretched, so now it's thinner in here. Tension on the brainstem, spinal cord, and nerves. Loss of normal cervical curve. That's totally messed up. And so that's the problem with a whiplash. I know some people, if you've never had a whiplash, you can say, Who are you getting? A whiplash? Boo-hoo.
So it can affect the ligaments and tendons.
Yes.
It can affect the discs. It can affect the spinal cord itself. And it can affect the bones because, like you said, you can get compression fractures.
And these ligaments, remember we said the longest thing that takes to fix anything is those ligaments. The ligaments could take months to years. So I have insurance companies always asking me, come on already, it's been 3 months, they should be all better by now. And it's like, they give me like 2 lines to write this in there, and I go, you didn't give me enough room. It's going to be pages to explain this. Anyway, it's a whole different ball of wax these days on this because we know more, we've learned more, we've studied more. So that's how that one works. And yep. Very cool. So that's what we do now. So on each one of these vertebrae, each one, there's a top and a bottom. Here, let's grab that.
All right.
Oh, this one, yeah, this is great. So there's a top and a bottom, and then a top and a bottom. So you have
of the body.
Each one of these, right, from this view. So I'm measuring from here and then from here. And what we don't want, so let's say here's those 2 plates. So we don't want it going from this motion to that motion, because that would be stretched out ligaments, obviously. So that's where that ligament laxity, what you were talking about, comes from. But understand, to do this study is not a 2-minute job. We're talking a lot of work goes into it, which I've been pawning off to my son, Paul, and he's the absolute expert.
He's great at measuring. You got to draw different lines on the x-rays and measure things, calculate things.
First I get Dr. Tony to analyze it that it needs to be done, and then I get Dr. Paul to actually do the analyzation, which takes like hours to do this. It's like, because you got to measure every single, say that again, what do you got to do?
Well, you're looking at the angulation and the translation.
Explain what that is.
Well, like we said, the translation is if the bones move forward when you're doing motion, or move backwards, that's translation. And angulation is it should be a nice smooth motion. All the levels should move consistently. Maybe getting a little greater or less at different points, but there shouldn't be a great change or significant things that aren't moving properly.
All right. So we measure that to see how far that is, and we come up with numbers and what degrees and all this information to determine whether or not you do have this problem. And again, it's a big disability, so impressive. Anyway, I imagine eventually they're going to want us to do that stuff for, let's say, disability. Right now it's mostly for workman's comp cases or for auto cases. It's huge. This has gone rampant. And I don't know how many chiropractors are utilizing this information. I think it's very few.
I think there's more and more classes and seminars being given to chiropractors on the subject.
There is. It's crazy. Yep, and yep. So that's what we're looking at, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you back on the second half of Ask the Chiropractor.
Welcome back to Ask the Chiropractor. We're just going to go over some nice gentle spinal hygiene exercises, things that are good with the whiplash. But as always, if it hurts, don't do it. Some of them, I'm going to say, start later on. If you have a whiplash, do it later. We call these spinal hygiene. The first one we call the eagle. You're going to start in a nice inner warrior posture. You want to have feet shoulder width apart, stand tall, tighten your core abdominal muscles, and then you're going to, as you bring your arms up, tip your head back, take a deep breath in, bring your arms way up, tip your head back, and just stretch. Just open up all those joints, just stretch, and hold it there. And then breathe out. And let's do that again. Take a deep breath in. Reach way up, tip your head back, and just hold it. And breathe out. Do it one more time. And just stretch it way up. And breathe out and relax. The second one we call the hummingbird. We're going to start in the same inner posture, feet shoulder width apart. Stand tall, tighten your abs, and bring your arms up. And this time you're bringing your shoulders, you're making circles backwards with your shoulders. Nice and gentle. And when you do this, you want to focus on the space between your shoulder blades. You want to tighten the muscles in the back of your shoulder blades. This kind of offsets some of our poor posture when we're looking at our phones and hunching over. We tighten these muscles, stretch these muscles. Now we're stretching these muscles and tightening the muscles in the back. If not right after a whiplash, you can just tip to one side. If we do things, we want everything symmetrical, so then you can tip to the other side. Unless you have a spinal curvature, when we look at your x-rays, we may tell you just do one side or the other. Otherwise, we want everything symmetrical. And then the third exercise, you're going to clasp your hands together, put them behind your head, and as you take a deep breath in, bring your head back. Push against your hands. You get the resistance. You don't want to tip it up and back. You want to just go straight back. Another way of doing this, some people say when you're in a car, if you stop at a red light, make sure it's a red light, you want to push your head into the headrest. You get the resistance. You're not tempted to tip your head up. My husband likes to just do it without any resistance. He just kind of pulls the neck back. It's just a backwards motion, not up and back, just straight back. And as always, spring cleanup's coming, so anytime you're going to be doing anything physical or exercise, you want to warm up first. So do some warm-ups. Do these spinal hygienes every day. We call them spinal hygiene. Do it when you do your dental hygiene, a couple minutes in the morning, a couple minutes at night. Makes a great difference in your spinal health and integrity. As my husband usually ends the program, God's gift to you is life. Your gift back to God is what you do with your life. Go reward God. Give God back for appreciation for what He's given you. Thank you. This has been Ask the Chiropractor. Have a great month.